We heard your request for how to also test out our Macs, because this seems to be like the most temperamental cookie in the existence of cookies. And so we had to bring in our Mac expert, Muriel from Desserts. And she's the one who teaches our Mac classes here. And one of the things that she does at the beginning in every class is asks people, what mixer do you have? Right?
Yeah, we have to take a poll. Raise of the hands. Who has which mixer? Because they're all different, right?
And why does that change? Like, tell me what some of the things, just like a brief, like, what are things that you'll see differently in all these mixers?
Yeah, so KitchenAids, I mean, usually it's like, okay, who has a KitchenAid, who has a Bosch? KitchenAids, there's usually the two different kinds that people have, the raise and lower or the tilt head. And the tilt head right here, it goes way faster.
It does.
Way faster. And the tilt head just goes at a nice, steady pace.
Yeah.
So when you're doing Macs, you really have to be careful because the meringue will whip up at a completely different speed depending on which machine you use.
Okay.
Like considerable differences. I have it actually in the recipe that like if you have a tilt head, it's going to be 30-second intervals, bumping up speed. If you have a raise and lower, it's going to be 2-minute long intervals.
It's crazy.
Which is substantial.
Yes.
I can like set a timer and actually walk away, which is normally like a cardinal sin of Macs. So it is something to be aware of.
So this goes back to that age-old statement where we are always telling you to get used to your oven,
yes,
as well as get used to your mixer, because if you were to follow the recipes exactly how they're written, you're going to have very different outcomes, or you may not even mix it enough if you're
yes,
using this one. And so
exactly,
we're going to make our KitchenAid ones the same time, and then we're going to do a Bosch and a Nutrimill at the same time, and we're going to time them because we want to kind of help you see. But again, this is maybe one of those things that you're going to probably have to do your own experimenting on your own mixer, but this will give you some groundwork as we're to get started, right?
Yes. And depending on your recipe specifically for macarons with the meringue, I take my meringue slow. I don't whack it up to a 10 like you would like a meringue kiss or a whipped cream or something like that. I do intervals of speed as it builds up so that it builds stabilizing bubbles. And in order to do that and to be able to watch from it going from like a froth and a foam, eventually to soft peaks and then to hard peaks, I want to be able to visually see that change. And if it's going super fast, you have to be very aware.
Yeah.
So.
Okay. Well, we're just going to follow your lead.
Yeah.
We'll just kind of catch some little clips here and there, but let's, take us through your journey of the KitchenAid with the Macs.
All right. So we have our whisks. And we are going to attach them to our mixers and put them on up. We've already measured out our egg whites, so I am going to grab some over here. And you've got some here. Yep. We have our phones for timers. It's like a stopwatch, all right? So at the beginning, when you start with Macs, you don't time. You're just looking for a froth to form. Just looking for some bubbles, and that's when you add the sugar. So we'll dump our egg whites in. But even then, depending on how fast your machine is, that could go a lot faster, depending on which one. So we'll start at like a 2.
Not my stir.
Not your stir. Start at like a 2. So, or we'll go to a 3.
Okay.
Did you guys know there's speeds in between? 2, 3, 4. Even though it says 2, 4, 6, 8, there is a middle speed. So we'll start at a 3. And this one's already, it's going so fast. This one already is getting super frothy. This one's barely frothy at all.
So how long are we at with this one right now? Like 30 seconds?
Yeah, let me start. Sorry?
It's very different. And one of the fun things we tested as we were doing, you can see how much faster, because this is a smaller circumference, this is going around.
So this is already at the time that I would start adding granulated sugar because it's frothing up pretty fast.
And so you're just looking for the bubbles.
Yep.
From the egg white.
I want that froth. I don't want to overwhelm the meringue, the egg whites with the sugar. I don't want to like get clumps in there. I don't want it to have to fight.
And you're pouring it in different spots rather than just one spot at a time?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm just I'm preventing clumps from forming by sort of lightly dusting it all the way around. Aiming for the inside of the bowl. Same with this one. Now I have froth on this one. Looks good to get going. We're just sort of adding it in. That one's like way farther along. This one's taking its sweet time. So because of this, a lot of times I'll bump this one up to a higher speed to sort of match this one.
Are you going to today, or you're going to leave it at this lower speed?
Well, at this point, it's kind of just pushing it around, so I'm going to bump it up to a 4. All right, that's a 4. What I'm looking for is that, see that yellow circle in the center?
Yeah.
I'm looking for that to disappear. And that one is almost gone over here. It's just taking a little longer in the raise and lower, which is totally fine.
It's normal.
Yes.
Look at your cute nails.
Oh, thank you. Little Easter eggs.
Easter.
All right. And if it does take too long and you're thinking, oh, this is going to take forever, sometimes I'll warm up my hands.
Warm it up, okay.
Warm up the bowl because it's so cold.
Did you go as far as like a blow dryer?
Nah.
No, okay.
Nah. And then, again, this one, that little circle of egg white in the center is basically gone. This one is almost gone. But we'll start seeing the next phase of our process in just a little bit. All right, so the next step that we're looking for is what I call tails, finding tails. The tails are the whisk pulling through the meringue, forming an actual tail coming off in it. And you can see it because the meringue has thickened up. Can you see those lines coming off of the whisks, Chines?
Yep.
So, at this point, it's been about 3 minutes. We still have another minute to go for this guy.
So this is double the speed.
Yeah,
And
about
needs
double the speed.
1 more minute. Where this one's ready?
This one's ready. We'll start timing this guy. I'm putting it at 4 at the next speed, which is a 4.
Okay.
And now it's just gonna build. And at this point, I'm starting to see tails over here a little bit. Barely. Barely. So I'm gonna bump it up to a 5. And even that, doesn't really go that much faster. But we'll go 30 seconds on this guy too. Or not 30 seconds, we'll go a full 2 minutes on this guy. And really, the 30-second, 2-minute long, those intervals, they're less strict, they're more guidelines. Something you can just use to visually memorize what the meringue is supposed to look like as it builds. So it's going. This one's getting thicker and glossier. So I always like to mix and feel. So we're still soft. At this point, when I hit soft peaks, I don't even time it on this guy anymore because it goes so fast.
So how long are you mixing this for? You're just waiting till those are both incorporated?
Yeah, and then I'm doing maybe 5 to 10 seconds at a time because it goes so fast with the tilt head. So I'll just show you, okay? So we just did this and see that looking really good. I am going to all the way up to the top. That's it. That was 3 seconds. Spin it real quick. 2 more minutes. It's getting more, can you see how the thing is getting more distinct? Okay. I'm going to try another 2 seconds. This guy. That's it. That's how fast this goes. I am going to stop this real quick. That's the other thing with meringue. Feel free to stop. See how it's holding now? Yeah,
So pretty.
so much better.
With like barely any more mixing.
Yes, I mean, when I say 2 seconds, I mean like 1/1000, 2/1000, stop.
Yeah.
Like nothing. And that's on this tilt head because it just goes so fast. I always like to hand whisk just to see what it feels like, okay?
So when you say it feels like, do you want some resistance?
That's actually really good. We actually might stop here.
Okay.
Yeah, I want to feel that resistance. I want to feel it building that strength. This was like 9 minutes. That was probably like 6.5.
Okay.
And a lot of it has to do with the fact that it just builds so much faster.
Okay.
You get the bubbles go so fast. This one, it just takes a little bit longer because it's such a slow and steady wins the race kind of a mixer. So.
And because of that, you are okay getting up to a higher speed at the beginning, where this would be kept at a lower speed longer because it does mix things faster.
The ideal with the French method, of macarons, is that we aren't using a stove to melt our sugar. Italian method, you're using a sugar syrup that you've melted on the stove. This, we have to give it time. The granulated sugar in the egg whites, we have to give it time to melt that sugar naturally. So if it's just building up bubbles so fast, that granulated sugar won't have the time to melt.
Okay.
And then it won't also be a stable meringue because it's not, you know, a melted sugar in the egg whites. So.
Okay. Well, that is really interesting to know.
Somewhere running up my heartbeat, I don't look behind me, following the sun. Following the sun. Come and give your love away. Don't play it safe, I'ma let you fall, but I won't let you.
While we let our KitchenAid Macs give it the resting period, generally how long do you let them rest for?
They usually need to rest around a half hour. It just depends on the humidity of the day and how hot your kitchen is. So
that gives us plenty of time to test out the next set of mixers. So we've got the trusty Bosch and the little sister, the Nutrimil. We're excited because this is going to be a test for us as well.
Yeah, I've actually never personally used either of these. I've had students who have come back to me and said, my Bosch worked great, so I have faith that it will work well.
Whatever mixer you have at home, being able to see those telltale signs of like, okay,
still
what we're looking for.
Yeah.
This will give you, again, another roadmap to help you decide with your mixer at home.
Yeah.
But I'm excited because this could go really fast.
Yeah, it could. I mean, we're not going to have those like 30-second, 2-minute, whatever, you know, recommendations. We are literally going to visually watch these and, you know, watch for those cues. So, okay. And there are 4 speed settings.
That's really good.
Wow, that's a fast.
Has a little slower.
Okay.
This is why I was like, I don't know if I want to go the same time.
Yeah, that's true. Okay, good to know. This is going to be so interesting, you guys, with like double whisk heads. All right.
Looking for me, baby, you know.
So I'm just waiting for the same froth to form as usual, just in a different way.
Wait for the yellow to disappear.
Not yet the yellow disappear, but just for the bubbles to start. So they're starting. I'm going to start pouring the sugar in.
35 seconds in.
I'm still going to move it around just like a little bit, because I can see how it sort of clumps. it definitely looks very different.
It looks very different. So we're gonna,
We're experimenting.
yeah, add the color and the vanilla in, but we're ultimately also concerned with the amount that's on the sides.
Yes.
Because it's pushing it up that way, and we both felt like, oh, it looks like mayo or royal icing or
Yeah.
something like that. So we'll see how this next.
Stop it. And I'm just gonna get a spatula and see. It might be ready.
I'll lift this up.
Okay, okay.
So there's that cute little tip.
Yeah. So this becomes interesting. Just trying to like mix it a little bit so we can see. So I mean, I think we probably would be done. I don't know what time we're at.
Sorry, what is it?
If 2 instead of 5, sorry. No, yeah.
All right.
Can you hold
So,
it sideways one more time, Miriam?
yeah, sure. Because there is some breakage.
Or maybe you're calling me.
So about like 7 minutes, 30 seconds.
Yeah.
Maybe go like 7:15.
7:15, okay.
I think at this point, it really is going to boil down to practice. Also, all right, with a Bosch, because you can't successfully macaronage with this giant thing in the center, you're going to take this out and you're going to put it into here. Instead of dumping your dry into your wet, you'll take your wet and dump it into your dry.
You can lean on me.
When you think you might have broken your meringue, it's better to undermix so you don't just completely flatten it. Both from the overmixing, I like the overbeating and the overmixing, so.
Does work.
I think what I thought was the most interesting about the Bosch was that it looked syrupy.
Yes.
It looked less like it was building into a meringue and more like it was like all the air was being pushed out of it.
Yes.
If that makes sense, like thinner. So it was harder to see the change from stages, from froth to bubbles to light foam to soft peaks to stiff. It was hard to notice that change. That would be something you'd have to really get used to. All right.
Sorry, I can't remember what you said it is. I just could have just put it to your face. But
Oh, it didn't.
she's
Oh wow, that does look slow.
Here I am posing for the camera.
So it feels like it's just pushing it around as opposed to,
there's slight bubbles forming over here.
yeah.
Darling, it's cold out there.
Yeah, let's check it out.
So,
It's
like,
just so smooth looking.
5 minutes.
10 years.
It's hard to get in there to see. But yeah, this is a good place to stop it. It just looks so different. Okay.
Somewhere
That also
Got pulse.
gets me every time. Okay.
So here we're starting to look for soft peaks, right?
Yeah, well, it's kind of,
Oh,
how do we do this?
just pull.
Oh yeah. Just don't hit me in the head.
I'm covering myself in
You got splattered a little bit. It's fine.
Here's your hair. That's great.
Okay, yeah, see, soft. Okay.
Are you ready yet? We won't get this.
So it's still pretty loose. Maybe a few seconds more.
Song, wake up the melody.
Trying to like mix it a little bit. All right, that's probably
You
good.
can call it good?
Yeah, I'm gonna call it good.
So the time on that?
6:45.
Okay.
It's still pan. That's heavy.
All right, this
So that-
looks better. It doesn't look
This
like
one-
we
whoa,
broke
you
it,
can feel it. Yeah, that's really
so that's good.
So do you feel the Nutrimil worked out a little bit better?
What was
Yes.
the time difference?
So, on like 30 seconds, honestly.
Okay.
For
I-
the point.
I just feel maybe it was just because it was the second time around. So like, you know, Bosch and then this one with that same dual head situation.
Right.
So I feel like maybe we just watched it better and knew what to look for.
So, because it was trickier to tell, what were things that you looked for?
Well, building up and like having it actually have volume built
Okay.
up. Like when I say built, like actual bubble volume, like height in the meringue. It really just looks like it's being pushed around harder than a KitchenAid. So trying to see that gloss is a little more difficult because it's so runny comparatively.
Sure.
But
So, in comparison to what you're normally looking for in a KitchenAid versus the Bosch, what were the two differences?
well, that's hard. Now having watched them,
Yeah.
I'm really looking for the soft peaks and the stiff peaks. I feel like it's harder to tell that if it's broken because you can't really like get in there to manipulate it with your hand. I can't, I'm so used to feeling that substance, that like resistance when you mix with your hand with the whisk. So that's difficult in the Bosch and the Nutrimil because you can't really get in there. There isn't enough space. So I think really it will come down to practice and doing it multiple times and knowing like, okay, it went too far last time. Where are we at this time? Probably timing will be key in that experiment. Like, just like how I do 30-second intervals on tilt heads, 2-minute intervals on raise and lower. Finding like a speed interval and time interval will probably help a lot in creating a more consistent meringue.
Because we This is our all-star tray, which we're very happy with. You can see beautiful tops, beautiful feet, and of course we filled them with delicious buttercream. Very happy with how all of these turned out. The pink one was the 6-quart KitchenAid, the purple was the 5-quart KitchenAid, the green one was the regular Bosch, and then the yellow was the Nutrimil. All have really great cookies that come from it. But if we're being completely honest, we also have these over here. And this is where we're a little bit like, oh my goodness, okay, what happened? Because we did have some beautiful successes that came from it. But here's where we see that the 5-quart KitchenAid truly stood out to be the best mixer for making macs. It whips it up faster, which means you can't really walk away and leave it while it's going because it goes so fast. But the consistent results with these baked macs really shows how wonderful that it is at making macs. This was the 6-quart, which we were like mixing simultaneously. So if I was gonna do that again, I would probably do this one by itself because it does require longer time and different speed adjustments. But again, we were following the same rules. So this is our 6-quart KitchenAid. So if you have a 6-quart KitchenAid, you'll probably just need to adjust your times and your speeds a little bit more. And then here's where we get to the Nutrimil and then the Bosch. This cracking and kind of these baked tops is due to under or over mixing. But the Bosch and the Nutrimil were so hard to see where they were at that we had to make some guesses. So if you have one of those at home, we're not saying they're not great for that. You're just gonna have to experiment in your own kitchen with your own machines. So it does happen. We've got great successes, but you also may have some of these with those mixers. So
They still taste good.
they taste amazing.
Taste really
yes.
good.
And we're gonna stick with the 5-quart KitchenAid. Thank you very much.